Since I posted yesterday's video with my thoughts about the Charleston shooting at Mother Emanuel AME Zion Church, I have been following on Twitter and Facebook the continued conversation in the aftermath of the shootings. And what I'm seeing is people going one of two directions as they are dealing with the shooting and our response to it. One is that I'm seeing a number of people saying that, or at least asking the question anyway, was this young man mentally ill, or stating blatantly and outright, the person who did this was crazy. And I don't think we can say that. And I don't think we can say that for at least two reasons, one of which I'll get to in a second. The first one is that there is such a low statistical correlation between mental illness and violence that to say that mental illness is responsible then for this action is to fly in the face of all of the research that has been done about violence and the mentally ill. The simple reality is the mentally ill are actually less violent than the average population. So when we would look at someone with schizophrenia, for instance, or with bipolar or any other number of mental disorders that are not psychopathy or sociopathy, we tend to see a very low prevalence of violence within those particular groups. The other thing that I'm seeing people go to in response to this, which I sort of understand more anyway, is that in the aftermath of a shooting or a tragedy like this, there tends to be this sort of desire, a really deep-seated need to do something. We got to do something about this. And it seems like where that particular response is moving towards is we've got to get rid of the Confederate flag that's in Columbia there on the Capitol grounds. Let me begin what I've got to say about that just by saying that I have absolutely no interest in defending the presence of the Confederate flag on the State House as it was in the 90s or on the Capitol grounds where it is now. I don't have a dog in that hunt. As far as I'm concerned, they can consign that flag to the dustbin of history. It doesn't bother me, doesn't matter to me. But what I do find interesting is that people are moving to that so quickly. But I don't think anyone, if they were being at all reflective about the situation, would say, well, it was obviously the flag that made him go out and shoot these people. Because that's obviously patently false. You see, when we start fleeing to mental illness as an explanation for this violence, or the presence of the flag as a explanation for what he did, we're failing to reckon with the reality of the human condition. And the reality is that Dylan Ruff's violence and the racism that undergirded it, it's not a skin issue, it's a sin issue. That's what's happening. And until we deal with the nature of the human heart, unregenerated apart from Christ, everything that we're doing is going to be a lot like putting a Band-Aid on a deep-sucking chest wound. It just isn't going to help. I'd like to remind you, for those of you who are Reformed or Presbyterian as I am, what the Heidelberg Catechism, one of the three forms of unity, has to say about this. In Lord's Day 3, questions 7 and 8, the Heidelberg Catechism, in question 7 asks, from where, then, does the depraved nature of man come? Its answer is from the fall and disobedience of our first parents, Adam and Eve, in paradise, whereby our nature became so corrupt that we are all conceived and born in sin. Question 8. But are we so depraved that we are completely incapable of any good and prone to all evil? The Catechism's answer is yes, unless we are born again by the Spirit of God. All of our desire to chalk this up to mental illness and all of our desire to blame this on a flag is a way of avoiding the central problem that confronts us. And that is the depraved and wicked nature of the human heart apart from Christ. Something to consider, to think about, and to dwell upon as we prepare for worship tomorrow. As the word is going to be preached, and as we gather together to worship the holy and triune God, one of the things that we do when we do that is confess our sin. So brothers and sisters, I encourage you, go to church tomorrow prepared to confess your sin, the wickedness of your heart, and to flee to Christ and to Him alone for salvation. Thanks.